Hi everyone, welcome to Beyond the Evidence. This is the channel where justice matters. My name is Marv. I am a true crime fanatic, and I love to dig deeper into the mysteries of unsolved cases. Join me as we search for missing persons, uncover the clues in unsolved murders, follow along with jury trials, and we'll be a voice for the voiceless. I'll share with you the facts, the theories, the clues, the evidence, and the controversies that surround these cases. This is Beyond the Evidence. Good evening, everyone. I think it's Tuesday. I'm not sure. We're on day 5, according to my count. Some people say we're on day 6. I don't know. I'm going with 5. So, I'm going to say hello to the first 5 that come on tonight. Linda says, hi, Marv. Hope you're getting some rest. Doing a great job. Cyber Warrior, hello. How are you? Renee Days, nice to see ya. Jill Mosier, one of my OGs, nice to see ya. And Tina, how are you? I think I can count, that was 5. All right. So what happened? Yesterday, I did not go to the courthouse. I was so tired, I slept until 1 p.m. in the afternoon. I just had to rest. My body just told me it was time to rest, so I did. I went and got to the courthouse between, I think, 12:30, 1 o'clock last night. I have not slept, so I'm awake, giddy. There's a lot to go through. I promise you guys, I will catch you up on yesterday's. If you want to see a good reporting, go to my recommended list and listen to Lawyer Lee and Andrea Burkhart. They are awesome at reporting on this, along with myself. Very detailed. But this weekend I will try to catch us up. Give us the highlights. It's going to be very cold tonight, and I'm going to have to go and sit in the cold again. So, day 5. What was Richard Allen wearing? It looked like a white striped shirt. The lighting in there is very weird. At first I thought he was wearing a purple striped shirt, but I'm pretty sure it was white with maybe purple stripes. I don't know for sure. But he had his khaki pants on, glasses on his head, a belt. What I did learn is that there's 3 cameras in the courtroom. 1 up front by the judge, 2 in the back. So I'm going to start this live by stating this. Trials are supposed to be open to the public for a reason. Transparency. Make sure that the individual is the individual that did this and nobody is wrongly convicted. I can tell you that's not happening here. Okay? You go and listen to all of the other podcasters and they will tell you the same thing. But we're doing the best that we all can, including working together to make sure our notes are up to date and we have the right information. So we are all working together to bring you the best coverage we can on this trial. Today, I was able to get in for both the morning and the afternoon session, and boy, was it a day. Richard Allen sat quietly, looking down when he came into the courtroom. Court started at 9:05 a.m. this morning. The prosecution needed to publish some exhibits from yesterday's testimony of Mullins and Jason Page, so they got that done and produced and handed out to the jury. And then we had one of the best witnesses I have ever seen. I'm telling you, this woman is a spitfire, and she shot back at the defense all through their questioning. So I can't wait to tell you this. Our first witness today was Sarah Carbough. We know her as the Muddy and Bloody Lady. Okay? She was witness 1. Stacy Diener did the questioning for her. She is young. She has long hair. She lives in Delphi all her life, has lived on the outside of town by the Monon High Bridge. She is very familiar with the trail and visits it daily to walk her dog. She passes this Mears entrance often and uses the Mears entrance to get to the trails. And she said she knows it's the Mears entrance because it's right across from the family homestead and directly in front of the house. Okay. So she said that at the age of 16, she did walk across the bridge a couple of times. The third time, she just couldn't do it anymore. She has not done it as an adult. She remembers seeing the Amber Alert and knew that Abby and Libby was missing that day. She was out and about driving a lot that day. And she said she actually passed that area 4 or 5 times that day. Driving by to see how busy it was. Past entrance at least 3 to 4 times. Lunchtime, warm day. Rode around. There was vehicles there every time she passed. At 4 p.m., a group of people were at the entrance. There was a girl talking to people looking stressed. She headed east. She came across a man covered in mud and blood on the side of the road, walking west towards town. He was on the driver's side. She looked at him, but no eye contact. She was driving about 35 miles per hour because on that road, you do have to go slow. She slowed down a little bit, didn't recognize him, and at the time, didn't know that Abby and Libby were missing. Okay, so then they put up states 220, which is once again a piece of paper of BG, or not of BG. No, states 220 showed the Mears entrance and the road, and she showed them the way that she went past the Mears entrance and what way she drove down the road. She circled the Mears entrance. She put vertical lines where she saw the man, and she labeled the guy as Bridge Guy. She learned the girls were missing at home and saw the man on the news. State's evidence 210 is a picture of a man. She recognized him as the man who was muddy and bloody. Definitely covered in mud and blood, and his demeanor was strange. He was walking on the side of the road. He was sketchy. You looked at him walking with his head down, blood splatters on legs and mud above. Thought he fell down the creek, or actually thought he fell down the cliff. Okay. The sun was in the process of setting. There was an orange glow in the sky. She did not watch him in the rearview mirror. She called Ellie traumatized by the murder, very upset. Officers were in that area stopping people, asking them for tips. And she said, God, make me brave instead of scared and tell them what I saw. She said that this turned the town upside down. They showed her the Hoosier Harvest Store video in pictures, and she said it was familiar. She didn't know it was a store, though. Police showed her a photo of her vehicle. So State's Evidence 219. It was a picture of her own car. She drove by the Hoosier Harvest Store at 3:56. And they published those pieces of evidence. Here's where it got interesting. The defense comes on. And Baldwin says, 11 times in your first interview, you used the word muddy. Never said blood. And she said she did say muddy and bloody, that Ellie did not catch on to this. The second interview, she said muddy and bloody. Transcript does not show that she mentioned blood. And then they said, well, did somebody tell you not to say it? And she said, no, I said it. Third interview. Or no, she said mud 13 times in her second interview. And she said, yes, I did. And that she did say blood. She said an hour portion of her video is missing. Baldwin asked if she would like to read the transcript, and she said yes, from the May 17th interview that she did. She looked it over. She said she didn't see it, but remembers talking to the officer and describing it. And he said, no one prevented you from saying it? And she said, no. So then he starts in on her third interview, 2 years later. And he said, you mentioned blood in this interview, but no mud. And he said, you never used the word mud, only said blood. And he said the description, or she said her description has always been the same in all three interviews, muddy and bloody. And then there was an objection because the prosecution said that he already asked it and she already answered it, to stop asking. and it was sustained. Then he went to the March 2019 transcript and asked her, is the word mud or muddy in there? And he's like, there's no mention of the word mud. There's only blood 16 times in the third interview. And you mentioned it looked like a hog had been slaughtered. How accurate is that? She said, I don't know. It's still muddy and bloody. And then, hang on, I got to find my note. I don't know if this is where she said it or not. Okay. I'm just going to keep going because let me tell you, she was pretty much telling them how it is. She was adamant. She said muddy and bloody throughout all 3 interviews. Then they asked her, well, you never stopped and helped the man? And she says to him, no, I'm not going to stop and help him. I'm a woman. You think I'm crazy or something to that effect? It was hysterical. And she's yelling it. She's yelling this at Baldwin. And the whole time she got frank with him and just hostile with him, he kept his cool. I will give him that. So they went back to the first interview and he says, you said the coat was tan. And she said that was, and then you said that was inaccurate and changed it to blue after seeing States 220, which is the picture of the man. And she says, I remember brown because it was muddy. So I may have said the wrong thing. Yes, I did see BG. Hard not to notice him being muddy and bloody. The image the officer put in front of her, after he put it there, story changed. So Baldwin was trying to say that her story changed to he was wearing a blue jacket after she saw the picture of BG. She said, no, I have anxiety. Sometimes I say the wrong thing. She said that he was wearing a brown sweater. And she had previously said that he had curl to his hair. And she says, you know what? A little bit of it was sticking out. It could have been curly. And then he starts talking, well, don't you remember saying this man had feminine eyes? And this is where she lost it. She's like, what? I never said that man had feminine eyes. And she's yelling it to him. And then he said, and you said you didn't have your phone. And she said, I don't think I would have left my phone. My phone pinged off the towers. Your info is incorrect. The phone pinged and LE contacted her because they saw that her phone pinged in the area. Then he says, who's your provider? And she said, Verizon. And he said, okay. She says, I believe I was driving 35 miles per hour, not speeding. Saw him for 30 seconds. Saw him on the side of the road for 30 seconds, covered in mud and blood. Suspicious. He was in layers. And then they're like, well, what did he look like? And she's like, I don't have any details to what he looked at like. I didn't look him in the eyes. She did not take any crap from Baldwin. That is in my notes. She did not take any crap from Baldwin. She said he had a hoodie pulled over, and that hoodie was tan or brown. The hair could have been a hat. Hat on person, odd to her. Only familiar with baseball caps. She's like, I'm not used to other hats. I only know baseball caps. And they said, well, could he have had a bill on it? And she said, maybe. I mistaken that for hair. I don't know. She said she saw his earlobes. She said she can't tell him specific details, just that she saw his earlobes, that his hands were in his pocket, and then she stood up and she did this hunched over thing and put her hands in her pocket and acted like the guy walking down the road, saying he was slumped over, curled into himself. She said once again, her phone number was identified from pings on the tower. All her family got called that lived nearby because their phones also pinged on the tower. And they contacted everybody's phone who was in the area. Then they went back to the second interview. She said, I noticed a portion was missing, 1 to 1.5 hours. Told officer that he was muddy and bloody, and that Ellie provided a photo and she marked it in pencil where he was muddy and where he was bloody. And had she known that this was going to come into evidence, she would have made them give her a pen and marked it better. 221 evidence, image of BG where she marked muddy and bloody. And she showed it to the jury. And the whole time she is talking to the jury, even though she's angry at Baldwin. And she's showing them right here, all down here, he had mud. And here there was some blood splatter. And down here he had blood. And she's showing them on the picture, the jury. It was harder for us to see because we were in the back. But random splatters of blood on the pants. She knew he had been down by the river because he was so muddy. Once again, third interview indicated blood. Mud in the first two, and then blood in the third one. And she said the reason she didn't mention mud in the third interview is because the people questioning her, the law enforcement officer, was focusing on the blood. She said, we were focusing on blood in the third interview. And he said, especially after you said mud 13 times, wrote it on second interview, mud and blood, have to take your word. Not my fault that portion of her interview is missing. And then, hang on, I got some more notes from her, I think. Okay, so he starts talking about this is earlier. He starts talking about the 13th time she says muddy. He was muddy. She looked at him and she says, are we really going to do this again? And he said, yes, we are. So you could tell that she just had enough. And as fast as she came on the stand, as quickly as she went off the stand. Now, the jurors did have some questions. How old were you in 2017 in February? And she said 27 or 28. And she said, wait, maybe 26. So she wasn't that old at the time that this happened. How wide is the road? The country, and she said it's a country road. 2 small cars would fit on it, but if you had a larger vehicle or 2 larger vehicle, they would have to have their wheels off the road to get by one another. And it is a narrow road. I can honestly tell you that from driving on it. How did you see the blood splatter? Was the next question from the jury. She said it stood out because of the whitewashed jeans and it made the blood splatters stand out on the jeans. Oh, how close were you when you saw him? Less than 20 feet. And then she says, I didn't take a ruler out and measure it while I was driving to see how close I was to him. She actually said that to the defense. It was hysterical. I'm telling you, she was matter of fact, said that the man she saw was the man on the bridge in the picture, and that he was muddy and bloody and acting sketchy. All right, let's get to some questions real quick here. Thanks, Boston. I appreciate it. Let's see. Which side was she on? She said she was driving. Hang on. Gotta go back to that part. She was going past the Mears towards the Hoosier Harvest Store. That's how her car was on camera at let me see, what time was that? Picture of man. Man was muddy and bloody, sketchy, walking with his head down, hands in his pocket. Okay. 3:56 is when she drove by the Hoosier Harvest Store after seeing him. Michelle, nice to see you. We'll be back Sunday night with coffee and donuts. All right. It's going to be cold tonight. It's supposed to be 32 degrees out there. Let's see here. Yeah. That's wild how he was out walking in plain sight and didn't seem worried. Plus, nobody else saw him but the witness after. Yep. I don't know, Melissa. He had to get out of there, that's for sure. Yes, they played that yesterday, and I'll talk about that at the end because I got some really good details of what happened with the phone. Yeah, thank God she didn't stop. She knew better. There's not going to be a transcript of the video. Yes, just so you all know, while I'm in court, Andrea's posting updates all the time on the Beyond the Evidence Facebook group. Yes, I think you're right, Judy. The jury will believe that this was, a split second situation. She saw what she needed to know that he was the man in the picture. And yes, you're right too here. If he was wearing like a beanie hat, it may have looked like curly hair. Um, yep. She's describing Bridge Guy exactly. Lots of hellos to Randy. I hope they would check that out and make sure if he was in the hospital. But we haven't heard anything about any cuts on him. Jurors don't ask questions ever. They just no. These jurors ask questions. Believe me. They are so engaged and they are focused. They are listening and absolutely ask questions. Yes, they can take notes. And so when the prosecution shows them these their evidence, their pictures on a piece of paper, each one of the jurors get a copy of that picture and they get to put it in their folder. So what happens is then the bailiff gets the questions, takes them to the judge. The attorneys and the judge go have a conference with white noise on to determine if they can even have the witness answer the question. So far, all of the jury questions have been answered by the witness on the stand at that time. It was hard for me to see him today, so I don't know what his response was. Anything's possible. We're not sure exactly where he came out at this point. She was the witness for the prosecution. Yeah, she was a pit bull towards him. She does not like him. You can tell it in her demeanor, and she gave it right back to him. Um, yes, it was the best so far. Absolutely. And you're right. Eyewitness details, they see what they see, and that's what you get. No, I didn't get a look at his reaction. I was told no, his daughter has not been there so far. He's not hostile. Today he actually normally he just sits down and he talks to his attorneys, right? And today after lunch he was actually standing up at the table talking to them like no care in the world. So, I don't know. Let's see here. Yes, we got an advantage and we saw him smiling um at the crime scene photos. Not everybody can see them where they're at though. Okay, let's move on because this is this was the most frustrating testimony of the day. This is what we were waiting to hear besides seeing the crime scene pictures. It was the autopsy okay? And his name was Dr. Roland M. Core. He was the second witness, forensic pathologist, consulting, semi retired, oversees the laboratory, um, specimens, blood tests, and lab function. Went through education and residency, described his residency, received a job after residency at a hospital. He spoke very fast and very quietly. It was impossible to hear what he said. I caught that he worked in the ER and that he taught 20 years criminology and criminal justice. And then he started talking about the autopsies. And like I said, you could not hear him. The families were doing the same thing that all of us were doing. Basically, the judge, the attorneys, and the jury could hear him, and maybe the first row of media if they listened intently. Okay? It was so frustrating. Um, he talked about an autopsy. Um, and crime scene investigators, the coroner experience, um, how he's present at the crime scene. What is an autopsy? It's an examination of the body, the organs, the blood samples, microscopic changes, cause of death. And then he went through the process, and we didn't hear this at all. The process and the stages and steps on how he does an autopsy. All I caught from it is he looks at the photograph, he undresses them, and he cleans the body. It was so frustrating. Was looking for hair, looked under the fingernails, did scrapings, but he said their nails were very short, so there was nothing under there. Both of them did have an assay kit done. They looked at the internal. Okay, this was frustrating. I promise you it gets better, but the first part of this is just bits and pieces of what I heard. So he was describing the wounds and cause of death, explained what he did and what he looked at. He's done 7,700 autopsies. He's testified, and he was contacted by the prosecution. All we heard was February 14, 2017, conducted Abby and Libby autopsy, performed on February 15, 2017. And this is an older man. Everybody kept saying this is some young guy doing the autopsies. No, this is an older man. So State's Exhibit 222, we could not hear what the description was. He said he'd seen it before. State's 224 was a close-up of the injuries. Let's see. They asked him how he went about doing the autopsy on, and he started with Abby, and what he did in between the autopsy before he started on Libby's. So he explained that all to them, which we didn't hear anything. He said something about Abby's height and weight, but we couldn't get it. I got clothing, sweatshirt, jeans, gray sports bra, black bra. Then he started talking about this essay kit again and the nails, but we didn't get any details. I even said mumbles and speaks low in my notes. As I said, we were all sitting up as far as we could. We had our hands cupped to our ears. The families were doing the same thing, trying to hear what he was saying. I did get that there was no essay assault as far as inserting anything in there, but there could have been. He said there could have been touching. They took many swabs. Nothing came back. No blunt force trauma. All the injuries were to their necks, and one of them possibly had tape across their mouth. So then we're trying to hear him describe Abby. At this point, Carrie was crying. We did hear that the carotid artery, right side and left side, and the jugular vein, and he was talking about Libby. And he says, arteries take the blood away, veins take it to the body. And then he mentioned something about 3 wounds. And then we took a break. I think the judge could tell that everybody was frustrated. And she gave us a 15-minute break. And I had talked to some of the family members, and they said they could not hear, that they actually went up to Stacy Diener and said, something has to be done. We can't hear anything that this man is saying. So when we got back from break, Judge Gull says to rely on the media in the front row that can hear, because she can't do anything about the sound. As long as the jury could hear and the attorneys could hear it, that's all that mattered. Well, this man heard this, and all of a sudden he pulled the microphone down closer to him, and we were thankful for that. Then they had him get out of his chair and go to the TV because they showed pictures. Before that, though, they had a picture of State's Evidence 223. It was a drawing. It was like from a medical book, and it was some, a face, but it showed the neck, and it showed the inside of the neck, and how you have your two carotid arteries, and then you have your jugular, right? And then 223A was shown. 223L was shown. And these are, A is a picture of Abby, L is a picture of Libby. And those were admitted and published. Then they showed a picture. They showed Abby on the autopsy table. They showed the shirt she was wearing. Then that was off. Then they showed the gray sports bra, and then that came off. And then they showed the black bra, and then they showed the hole in her neck. Abby had one puncture to the right carotid. I'm sorry, the right jugular. It was on the left side of her neck. She was laying, they had her laying on her back, and she had her arms clenched up like this, laying back. You saw blood on her arms. You saw some on her forehead. And he said that some of the smearing on the arms and the forehead was from them taking the clothing off. She had her mouth open, and her eye, the one eye I could see was open. He explained to us that the wound went from the right to the left. So right to the left, and you could tell because of how the corners of the wound looked. And he said that it was 1 inch deep, and it hit the jugular vein, and it also scraped against some of the muscle fibers. and it was a braided edge on it, and that's how he said he could tell where the knife started and or where it started and where it ended. This is not easy, you guys. This is nuts. She had an abrasion on her lip. She had faint reddish marks 2 inches wide on her mouth, above and below. And he said that was either from duct tape or cloth. They then rolled her over, and they showed her back. Of course, there was dirt from the ground. There was purplish, and he called it lidor, Lidor. He actually spelled it out for us. And he says this is rigor mortis. And then there was some other marks, and he said that was from the folds of the clothing. He said that Abby was 5'4" and weighed 95 pounds. And then Libby was 5'4" and approximately 200 pounds. He says that after the autopsy is done, they return the organs, they close up the Y incision, they wash the body and all the instruments and the table. They take all the samples and they label them and report them, or label them, and he completes a report while they're doing that. Okay. This is going to be it's not easy, guys, so just bear with me, okay? Libby. SA kit done. No trauma found. Swabs collected, but nothing was found on the swabs. Could have defensive wounds / restraints. He said no. He said there was 4 to 5 wounds on her neck. 2 of them were cut multiple times because they had the same size and appearance. So he was asked, 2 wounds connected? And he said yes. Different beginnings. She had paper bags on her hand, sealed with tape. And they viewed this before any cleaning was done. So there's 3 gaping holes. Okay? 1, 2, 3. And they're big. And he said the reason he could tell that the person cut the same one on the one side in the middle is because you could see the marks. He said it was almost kind of like an X. There's a tag on the one that shows the second swipe. And he said that the second swipe was deeper than the first. And he was talking about the right wound. Then he went to the middle wound. He says, could be 2 passes, meaning did it twice in that area. And then he looked at it closer and he said, "Oh yes, I can see this. She's got two there too." There was hemorrhaging and muscle division. The left side, the gaping hole was almost up to her ear. And then she had this mark down on her neck. And what it looked like was five straight lines. And at first he said that came from a serrated knife. She had on her right shoulder, she had a small incision. She had an abrasion on her leg. And then she had another tiny abrasion on her chest by her neck. He was asked about the girls' reactions. What would they have been doing at the time that this happened? And he was specifically talking about Libby at this point. Her action would be to pull away, to move, to try to get out of the way in a defending posture so that she couldn't be cut again. So I said there's five cuts, serrated knife, deepest part cut center. Both of Libby's carotid arteries had been, one was completely severed and one was nicked. And then her jugular had been cut through. And then he started talking about the serrated edges that he saw. Reports said that there were serrated edges, and then he changed his mind. So after the reports are done and it's sent to the prosecution and the defense, this was the biggest bombshell. He goes back and he's trying to think of what made these 5 lines and then this crazy pattern on her neck. And he says, it was a different part of the knife. He says it looked like a plastic piece on the handle made the scratches, and the grip to the box cutter is what made the pattern in her neck. And he said that Abby would have felt pain, fight for her life. Both girls' heart rate would have went up. There would have been massive bleeding, massive blood flow. Their blood pressure would have dropped. They would have went into shock, and eventually they would have lost consciousness. And even though they lost consciousness, they're not deceased. Their brain function was still working. Now, he said that when you're up and moving, things act faster. When you're sitting or laying, it could take longer. And in my notes, it says he estimates it took 5 to 10 minutes for the girls to pass away. Said Libby, same thing, increased breathing, more rapid blood loss because she had the 3 gaping, blood on their hands from grabbing and trying to apply pressure to the wound. This can slow down blood loss. He said it could have taken 5 to 10 minutes, but more than likely 5 minutes because she had the 3 gaping wounds and her vessels were cut. She had cerebral edema, which is swelling of the brain. And this was caused by, he said, hitting her skull, being strangled, or in her case, it was blood loss. They asked him if he could get a precise time of death, and he said no. He said within 40 to 41 hours of going missing prior to being found. That is when they passed away. So then the defense got up there and they're like, you have no time of death on the autopsy. You don't really know when she died. And he said, no, I don't know an exact time of when she died. We can only go by the last time she was seen alive and when she was found. He's figuring 24 to 48 hours before discovered. He says time of death is actually very challenging to find out. It's not like you see on the shows. He couldn't say much about the weapon except that is sharp and it was forceful. Had a sharp edge. Didn't know the length. Could have been a pocket knife to a kitchen knife. In his original statements, like I said, and deposition, he didn't say anything about a box cutter. He did say that Abby's wound was not instantaneously. It would have been about 7 minutes to unconsciousness. She could have reacted, moved, fought back. He said the trachea was not damaged, so she could have yelled or screamed or talked, and she would have been able to breathe because she just had the one wound. Once again, marks on the bottom of the mouth. Not restricting breathing, possibly, but something around mouth. And he did say her fingernails were too short, nothing. Samples were collected, packaged, and labeled. Libby, 4 to 5 injuries. Could not tell if person was right or left-handed. Serrated marks used in report to defense and deposition. Serrated area, possible handle And the defense was asking if 2 different objects were used. He says he don't see that. Something about angle or force of insertion. There would have been more swelling, less oxygen, not instant passing. Said it could have been 3 to 10 minutes, or it could have even been up to 20 minutes. And then he was talking about the artery projection of blood around the body. Debris on her leg. No conclusion as to who did this. The images showed both of them laying on a white sheet, and the defense wanted to know why that was. And he said that some offices where autopsies are done, there's a white sheet in the body bag, and that they just take it out and put it on the table. He said most of the time these come from hospitals or emergency rooms. Okay, then they got into the serrated marks. February deposition on the 27th. Went back after the deposition. This doctor said he went back and thought about it. Thought a lot about the conversation. And realized it was not classic serrations. He spoke to different people and considered target clarification of marks. And the defense was not happy that he said it was a box cutter. They're like, did you contact the defense and notify us of this change? Did you change your reports? Did you speak to the prosecutor? There's different types of box cutters. He can't say it was definitely a box cutter, but he was fairly certain it was. He said that 10% of the time, after going through and doing an autopsy and looking at everything, he will change his mind on certain things, and this is one of those things. They told him, you know that we know that you met with a reporter. This is a high profile case. Once again, why didn't you write a supplemental report? And he said he didn't need to. He said he believes that one knife was used for these wounds. We then went to lunch, and we came back an hour and 20 minutes later, and Richard was smiling and talking to Baldwin. He was standing at the defense table instead of sitting like he normally does. I did get to see him. Nick walked past him, and boy, did he give Nick a look. So, all right. I'm going to look here. at the comments. Let's see here. Yes, so we know that both the fingernails and an SA kit was done, um, but nothing came out from it. I don't know who's saying what about the autopsy, but once again, it was horrendous to see these photos of our precious girls. Not easy. No, as far as we've seen, they have not. His son-in-law and daughter has not been there. Yes, he said that she was 5'4" and weighed 95 pounds. Um, just banning that guy again. I'm glad you said this, Miracle Hearts, because in the press conference, Doug Carter told us, that it was bad, and it was. It absolutely was. Um, and now is where I'm going to get into the part before I start with the last witness, because the last witness, oh my goodness, that was interesting today. Okay, so the video on the bridge didn't tell us a whole lot at all, except for the fact that Libby was so strong and brave to take this video. This young lady at the age of 14 had watched enough true crime shows with her mom to know that she couldn't be obvious when filming him. A lot of it shows the ground, okay? But you see the phone come up, right? And it shows Abby walking on the bridge. And then they say you see the phone tilt, but she's got it close to her stomach. And that is when she catches Bridge Guy. There is no closer picture of Bridge Guy. It is that far away because they literally had to blow up the image. What we saw is what they blew up. Okay? So you see the ground again. You see her kind of moving the phone, and then you see Abby like leap to the end of the bridge. Okay? And you hear guys down the hill. And then you hear, and Carrie said this was Libby's voice, say, the path ends here. There's nowhere for us to, or you hear guys, and I think it was down the hill next. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it. I'll try to get clarification. But Libby says, there's nowhere for us to go. Or the path ends here. There's nowhere for us to go but down there. And then she starts walking and the video ends. There's no close up of BG. They said you could barely hear his voice. And they didn't really hear it until it was enhanced. They played it 2 times in court. So yeah. I'm thinking they're probably going to play it again in the closing arguments. So I'm hoping to see it then. It does not feel to me like Nick is telling the jury a story. It almost feels like they are saying, well, this is what we found. This is what we have. You work it out. So many questions left unanswered. I absolutely agree with you. Nothing right now that we've heard points to Richard Allen in any way. But we still have the bullet information coming up, and we still have the confessions coming up. Libby had one mark on her cheek and one on her leg, but we believe that was he said he believed that was from being drugged. There was no marks on her fingers, nothing. I don't know for sure, Judy, as to whether she was wearing hers and Libby's, or if she just wore a bra and a sports bra over the top of it. I do know a lot of young girls that do that. Yeah. Didn't say who it belonged to. It was not something that was easy to look at. I can tell you that. No, Abby did not try to run. You guys have got to forget that. They haven't come out and said it, but I believe because Libby moved around, Abby was the first one. And you have to remember what they said. There were no disturbances in the ground around her, meaning she didn't move. I'm beginning to wonder too, because of the fact of how severe Libby's wounds were compared to Abby's. I know you guys, you're doing the best you can with Brandon. Just keep doing it. He keeps making more accounts. Yes. Sicko. Beyond sicko. The jury see-throughs, is very focused. They watch everything. There is one man that is um a little skittish, queasy when it comes to these gruesome photos. Um he does he looks at it and then he doesn't. He looks at what he needs to look at and then he puts his hand in his head or his head in his hand. But like I said, you guys, I wouldn't wish you guys to see this for any reason. It doesn't leave you. That's in your mind from the moment you see these pictures. And I don't want the girls remembered that way. I want us to remember them alive, happy, smiling, having fun, doing their thing. Yes, these girls died in a very horrific manner. They suffered. Okay. They didn't go right away. They didn't say anything about that. He just said that he thought that underneath the one gaping wound on Libby's neck, there was like 5 straight lines, and then there was this pattern thing underneath it. It looked weird. I can't even describe it. And he said it looked like the plastic piece from a box cutter on the handle made the scratches, and then the grip of the box cutter made the pattern on her. And if this is true and their mouths were covered by something, that would explain why they didn't scream, why no one heard them scream. Yes, he said time of death was hard to determine, that it had been 40 to 41 hours prior. And so what he's saying is, he said 24 to 48 hours, but we know it was less than 24 hours because they went missing at that 2:15 timeline and they were found a little after noon the next day. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. I said this at the beginning of the live stream. I missed yesterday. I needed rest. If you want details on what happened yesterday, go watch Lawyer Lee and Andrea Burkhart. They are just like me with details, but they also give it the spin because they're both lawyers. They're in the recommended list on the main Beyond the Evidence YouTube page. Um, okay. So apparently yesterday when Betsy Blair was testifying, She mentioned something about a sketch. So now we believe the defense is going to try to get the sketches back in because she mentioned it. Yeah, it is terrifying to think of. They didn't run because they were frightened. He had the power over them because he had the gun pointed at him. Everybody says, "Oh, if I had a gun pointed at me, I'll do this, I'll do that." These are 13 and 14-year-old girls that love each other. They're not going to leave each other. They were scared. They knew this wasn't good. It's all about power to you. Remember that. No, there was no, he's got a gun or a cocking of a gun. None of that, you guys. Everything that we heard that was on this video was not. The only thing that was true is the fact that he said, guys, down the hill, that the shot she got of BG was further away and that law enforcement had to enhance those sections of the video and the audio in order to be able to hear what he said. And the only other thing we learned is that Libby said the trail ends here. We'd have to go down there or something to that effect. Nothing else. And they said you could barely see BG on the bridge. It was that far away. He didn't talk about looking at stomach contents or anything to find time of death. I think he only wears his glasses for reading, so he's constantly wearing them on the top of his head, unless he's got to read something or look at the screen. Then he puts them on, and then he'll take them off again and put them back on his head. I don't know for sure. I'm assuming the prosecution is going to go into this more on how they feel who was killed first and all that, but that hasn't happened yet. Yeah, they said once they enhanced the audio, they could hear it. Yeah, Thomas, it's not fun. There is no way that you could even tell if BG's mouth was moving. No way. So that was another game by the defense. I will, Jill, I promise. You guys, the only signatures at the crime scene is this. We know Libby was standing at the tree because her blood from her hand, after going like this, is on the tree. We know that she slumped down and was sitting against the tree, by the tree, when she was attacked again because there's blood at the base of the tree. We know that she bled out a lot there because there was a puddle there. And what he did is he grabbed her by the arm or the hand and pulled her to where he left her, and her arm was still up in that position. There is no tree right behind her. It's off to the right of her. Her her hand was left like that because that is what he used to drag her. And then the only other thing you have is the sticks on the girls. That's it. That is it. I don't know why he targeted Libby. I really don't. Um, I don't know. Nick said that that's all going to be explained to us. So we just have to be patient and wait till that comes out in the testimony. So I just want to go over a little bit with Christopher Cecil. He is the individual that did the phone data extraction. He works for ISP. He's a first sergeant. He's worked with them for 20 years. Right now, he's the commander of the Indiana Crimes Task Force. They showed a CV list, and this is a list of training that he has completed. He was in the Marine Corps for 4 years. He went to the University of Evansville for computer forensics, major cyber crimes. Or he's in graduate school for forensic major cyber crimes. And he's going to graduate soon. He has training on Celebrate cell phones. He uses the training to investigate digital evidence, hundreds of cases worked, provides training for cybercrimes, phone forensics, etc., to other law enforcement. He does computer inside the car connects to the phone to the car. He does forensic examination on that information and data. He trains 2 to 3 times a year, and has testified over 20 times. 2019, he was a computer forensic examiner for ISP, looked at cell phones, computers, vehicles, worked for cybercrimes unit. He said what started this new data pull was ISP got new equipment. And what this equipment did is it helped them unlock iPads and iPhones and decrypt the information on those items. He said that he volunteered to re-examine Libby's phone, and this new equipment allowed him to get more information from the iPhone 6 than what they originally got on the original data dump. Full file extraction. So what this does, it allows the technician to extract full content of the device. They use a program called Gray Key. And they get raw, comprehensive data that is extracted. They put it in a computer, and then they process it. They're looking for deleted info, all kinds of different things, and it generates a report, okay? So they get the info out of the phone in a non-readable format. He then takes it and puts it in other programs to read it. And he's going through the databases, putting it together, separating it into logs. He generates a report and looks at it to see what is there. He performed this analysis June 26th, an analysis was performed June 26, 2019. That's when it started, and it ended August 21st, 2019. He uses programs called Magnet and Celebrate, and it processes the information and analyzes the data. You have to use both of these programs in order to get all of the data from the phone. So February 13, 2017, he started with that date because Abby and Libby were at the Monon High Bridge that day and recorded the video of BG. He determines a sequence of events and gets the information to provide a chronological timeline. He compares that data and can then get the timeline. So a first report was completed on August 21st, 2019. He reviewed the report before today's testimony. He made notes and comments and provided that to the state. And then they actually gave him the binder on the witness stand to look back at in order to testify because there was so much information. So in this report that's generated, you get a cover page, you get a summary of findings. He says the one page has case numbers, an introduction piece, or an introduction tells you what piece of electronics it's evaluating. Shows stock photos of the phone. What you did and what it gives. It describes extraction of the phone and the SIM card. Talks about the content. Talks about the user account info on the phone. He said on Libby's phone, 2 people were using that phone, and it was Abby and Libby. And he could tell by the separate logins for them. He says the phone has biometric data, Touch ID. There was 3 fingerprints saved into that phone. Then he says there's Apple Help. It's a factory app that Apple has, and it tracks walking distances. It's always on. It's always working in the background, and it tracks steps, distance, and elevation. The steps and distances walked and change in elevation for a day. There's a accelerometer tracking the steps, the start and the end times are provided in the report. So the phone tracks the steps, the time, date, and the meter. He said February 13th, 2017, there was an error. He had put a typo in. He had put a date in wrong, so he fixed it. The number of steps and distances gave time that they started walking and stopped. And then he gave times. 1:31:40 p.m. 682 steps. That went to 2:08:48 p.m. They moved again. They went 414.38 meters. As of 2:24 to 2:25, there was 232 steps. At 2:32:39 p.m., that was the last movement of the phone. He said the elevation changed at 2:31:22, 2 floors. The phone stopped moving at 2:32:39 on February 13th. He said if you have a phone in a car, it could detect movement by bumps being dropped, bounced around, but you would see that it would only be 1 or 2. Then he talked about Knowledge C. It's a database. It logs activity of the phone. Whenever the phone lights up, whenever it's locked, whenever it's unlocked. In 2019, this info was not fully developed. Prior to 2019, they used Celebrate to get info, and it did not take Knowledge C info into account. And then he went into a timeline of Libby's phone. 1:38:14 p.m. Start charging. Phone calls. Using apps. Taking Snapchat pics. Battery life. It told him all of this. 1:41:44 p.m. Picture to Snapchat. Found pic within the Snapchat app. 1:43:59 p.m. Snapchat pic. Libby. It shows Libby in the tie-dyed shirt, grinning, and Abby in the back seat with a gray hooded jacket, and they're in the car. (2:05:10 p.m.) Snapchat pic. Monon High Bridge. We all know what that is. 2:07:20 p.m. Last time phone was unlocked. 2:13:31. The video was recorded of Abby walking on the bridge, and BG was behind her. 43 seconds. And that video stopped at 2:14:13 p.m. At 2:14:41, somebody tried to unlock the phone. So the last recorded movement of the phone was at 2:33:39 p.m. So 2:33 p.m. Then he said he thought that the last data was received and the battery depleted, but that was not correct. Hardware and software used to take back to 2019. Okay, provided reports to investigators. Programs have been updated since then in these programs, especially the gray key. He said the reason that companies do the updates is it's competition. Make more money, give more options. More data can be extracted um, because he got updates between 2019 and 2024. It allows decoding of more data as the application changes. And you can decipher more. Updated, Celebrate, and the other program, and re-decoded the phone. So he reprocessed his regular request. And this was done in 2024. Compared the data to Bruner's extracted data. 2017 did not compare 2017 to 2024. Method 1 extraction got second report. More data was added, different from the data in 2017 by Lieutenant Bunner. Not different, but got more system info. Could compare both reports. There was no difference. It was just that more things were added to the application, and therefore added info to the phone didn't change the data. He was just able to extract it. He did this from May 10th, 2024 to August 10th of 2024 and created a new report. Found additional info. So then they had him look at his second report. There was another mistake, as it was opened with, I think, the incorrect passcode. Oh, no, it was okay. It was opened with a passcode, and another end date was put in incorrectly. So they had to fix that. Knowledge C pattern of life. Some events tracked can be stored for weeks, months, or longer. First in, first out. Pictures and video could be included. Photo and video not stored in Knowledge C. Track if camera used. Could lose info if turned on and off. The pics and the camera in phone won't be deleted when turned on and off because they're stored somewhere else other than this place. Okay. So he says what happened is when he looked at the information of the video of BG, okay, it pulled a GPS near Delphi High School in the very beginning. for 4 seconds, and then it comes back to the trail. So when you have low battery power, it's using low accuracy. I can't read what I wrote. So then he just goes through all this different stuff about the Snapchat app, the battery power. He said the first report indicated that at 10:13 it died. When it's below 20%, the phone tries to save the battery. 10% power mode. CPO slows down. Then they were talking about the phone being off at 4:33 a.m. on the 14th. There was text messages, and he said the phone must be on. But he said the phone never turned off, no movement. Said received phone calls and SMS messages. And the SMS message was from Becky. And it said, "You need to call me now!" Exclamation point, exclamation. And the defense wanted to know why, or no, actually the prosecution wanted to know why there was a lull until 4:33 a.m. And he said he didn't know why. 4:33 a.m. was the last activity. Booting up iPhone, power up, 3:06 p.m. on the 15th. So what that means is that at 4:33 a.m. on the 14th, that is when the phone died. And then the guy brought it in and plugged it in, and it booted up and powered up at 3:06 p.m. So the defense really hammered them on original pic doesn't have date timestamp on it. How precise is it? And asked a lot about Snapchat cache. And about the camera. Something about the second report, not all categories celebrate universal forensic deactivation device. And then they talked about iMessages. iMessages need, or no, SMS messages need towers connection. iMessages doesn't. The phone received 15 SMS messages at 4:33. Doesn't know why this happened. iMessages are timestamped. Doesn't mean phone received them at that time. He said that he did extractions on Richard Allen's phone. Nothing on devices. Ties RA to Abby and Libby. His answer correct. Analyzed how many devices from RA's house. There was 23 devices he analyzed. So then there was one main part in here. Okay. "2017 phone was not collected." Richard Allen was shaking his head no to Kathy. So what they were saying is that his 2017 phone that he was using was not collected in all those electronic devices. Asked if AT&T was having cell phone tower issues. The answer was no. Do pics get sent to Snapchat? I don't know what that word is, but a lot of his answers were, I don't know. If photos saved to story, when are they saved? He said, I don't know. And that's where we ended it. So that was a lot of information. And I don't know that all of us understand it. The jury got to see the actual report and everything. So a few of them were asking questions off of that report that they saw. But a lot of his answers were, I don't know. So there's still some stuff that they've got to learn. He didn't say what time he had started. That's what they're saying. Yes. Well, there was a total of 23 devices between phones, tablets, iPads, whatever you want to call it. So that's a lot. Okay, so what do we the prosecution is moving right along. We never know who's coming up tomorrow. So we're going to have to wait and see. But We're thinking that the prosecution probably should be done with their case by the end of next week. It's going pretty quick. I think in the next day or two here, we're probably going to start hearing more about the bullet, and about the confessions. And let me tell you, I have not heard one thing right now that ties Richard Allen to this crime. So the prosecution on this back half better bring it. That's all I got to say. So I wanted to show you guys something. I'm going to present here and share my screen. Why is it not letting me see everything? All right, 1 second. Minimize. No. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. All right, I'm not sure what's going on. 1 second here. All right, I cannot get this to work, so 1 second. Okay. If you are a member of the Beyond the Evidence Facebook group, I posted a cot that has like a little tent above it. It's $90. So I'm looking to get some donations to be able to get that. Can everybody see me? My screen is weird. Okay, now it's better. It's going to start getting colder here. I cannot keep trying to sleep in a chair or on the cement That is what people are doing right now. Last night was nice out here, but tonight is supposed to be 32 degrees and it's going to be cold. So if anybody's interested in donating so that I can get this cot with the little tent over it and be protected from any rain or elements, Andrea's been putting in the Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal, or you can do a super chat or super sticker here to help or give thanks. So I appreciate it to all of you who have already donated to help pay for gas and food while I'm here. We're only on day 5 and we've got a while to go. And trying to get into this courtroom to get you guys the information is not easy. And by the end of this, I'm assuming most of us are going to be sick and tired and just completely run down. So, I'll put a picture of it on the community page. That way, if you're not in the Facebook group, you can see it. If you're not a member of the Facebook group, go join. Absolutely. We'd be happy to have you. But, so I've been on for 2 hours. It's 9:21. I'm going to get a couple hours of sleep here at the house and then have to head to the courthouse again and try to get some sleep while waiting in line. So I will see you all tomorrow. I'll try to do another live tomorrow and let you know. Yeah, it shows the name Beyond the Evidence Facebook group. So I'll try to do another live tomorrow afterwards and get a little bit more sleep and keep going. I do know that Saturday they are having, instead of testimony, they're having a hearing. And it's probably on all these motions that were filed, trying to get the Odinism in and all that good stuff. So Saturday I will be doing an update after court ends at noon to let you know what's going on with that. For now, I'm signing off. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Thank you for watching Beyond the Evidence. Today, I gave you my own opinions and analysis, but I always encourage you to do your own research and form your own conclusions. If you're interested in true crime and want to join me on this journey of discovery, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of my uploads. If you'd like to support the channel, join our membership, and if you have any suggestions for cases that you want me to cover, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and remember, justice matters. This is Beyond the Evidence, and I'll see you in the next video.